it's kind of a slow news week in the Muslim world for things that we haven't covered already. So what we're going to look at today is a quote from Andrew Tate, which is doing the rounds. So Andrew Tate has been a controversial influencer for a while and officially converted to Islam about a year ago. And on X, he said this: "If all your children come from one woman, you are not a conqueror."
Gosh. So,
what's our reaction to that, guys?
It's like kind of shocking because, first of all, I mean, it's not shocking because it's Andrew Tate, right? Like, but
yeah.
It's just like I've been married for like almost 20 years. Why would you want another woman in your life, right? Like, and then on top of that, you're talking about having children coming from like multiple places. That means you can't really spend any time with them because you're going to be like at this woman's house and at this woman's house. It's not like they all live under one roof or anything like that. And honestly, he's not talking about marrying any of them either, right? Like,
no, he says, "Wedlock is designed to control the peasantry. Kings must reproduce at any cost."
Bro, that sounds like the patriarchy argument just from the other side, right? Like something came like it's the patriarchy controlling women, but just from like it's I don't know, the man trying to control men from planting their seed everywhere.
Well, it's like the feminists misrepresented men in a very specific way and created a boogeyman. And Andrew Tate's views is like entirely exist to be that boogeyman that the feminists are scared of.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I think Andrew Tate, number one, is not to be taken serious. That's my opinion. Number two, the things that he's propagating is totally medieval bullshit type of things that in this particular world, this mindset of conquer, what you want to conquer. I mean, you already like you want to conquer another country, or like what does it mean? Kings need to produce. Where are the kings? You talking to King of Saudi Arabia?
No, it's called Tateistan.
I mean, I think these type of people should not be taken seriously, and should only be taken as okay. What a nice joke! I'm laughing at it. You know.
So I think there's definitely some of that to this, in that a lot of what Andrew Tate does is say things he kind of half believes and is farming outrage from people who clutch their pearls. So I want to be careful here not to be outraged and offended and taking this hyper seriously, because that's kind of what the trick is there to bait, right?
Right.
But take Andrew Tate aside, there are a growing number of men with this kind of worldview. And
I mean, a lot of young men follow him. You know, I catch my son, who's 15 years old, like, you know, looking at Andrew Tate clips and stuff like that. And
Gosh.
I have to remind him that the guy is not someone you want to emulate with your life, right? Like you don't want to grow up to be Andrew Tate.
Oh no, definitely no. I'll blame you, not him.
Right.
And the fact is that he makes lots of observations about reality, which are legitimate observations.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, Elon Musk is in the news again this week for a number of reasons, but one of those reasons is he's had his 13th child with somebody he was never married to. Now, Elon Musk is not a loser. He is a successful guy. He has lots of things worthy of emulating and respecting. The question, when you see something like this, like a polygamous relationship, is this a character flaw, or is this something that should be actively promoted?
I mean, I feel like this is just I heard somebody put it this way. You know, Andrew Tate is very good at diagnosing the problem, but his solutions are horrible, right? I don't even know what he's trying to diagnose in this question, you know what I mean? Like, okay, so you really just want to have sex with lots of different women. And if you have kids with them, then so be it, right? Like, it's not like you're sitting there going in. He's not going into it going, "Oh, I want to have a kid with you." You know what I'm saying? He just wants to like, do
Yeah.
nasty, and then if it happens, so be it. And he wants it on his terms with whatever, no birth control, no
Yeah, I think
condoms or anything like that.
one reference, Ivars, is like how compared Elon Musk and his relationship. I think the idea in Islam is the polygamy idea is there, right? And he's utilizing and he's amplifying on that. And that is not good because when you're married to someone, then there is an expectation on both sides. That there is emotional expectations. There is, because you both are married and soon I'm going to be married, right? So, how can I think that my partner can have multiple husbands, or can you think of that? So then if that is not possible for you to think of, how you can think that she can have multiple like I can have multiple wives, right?
Right.
It is not parallel. It doesn't make sense in reality. Yes, you can forcefully bring without her will or without her liking, then it just doesn't fold in the equilibrium of marriage, I think. So it is nonsensical idea. Yes, in a prehistorical time, I would not say prehistorical, but in medieval time, the idea was that you want to send men to war. You want to produce more and more and more and more kids. So this idea may be a little bit justified, but comes this modern world where you want to have excellent brains, you want to have nice, well-trained brains to go out in this world and do good work, then you have to focus on quality, not quantity.
I mean, I'll kind of shadow that. My main problem with all of this is that these kids are going to grow up with like a shadow father, right? Like, oh, look, that's your daddy, who you see when, I don't know, once a month, twice a month, like, and he's got all these other kids that you see once a month, twice a month, like, how much is that going to mess up these kids? I mean, him or Elon or, really anyone in that situation. Like, I'm not giving Elon a pass because he can support them. You know what I mean? I'm not giving Elon a pass because he's a billionaire. And honestly, this is what happens when you degrade marriage this much, right? Because neither one of those guys are talking about being married. Like, Andrew Tate is not talking about taking 4 wives like you can in Islam, right?
Mm.
He's not talking about Elon Musk is not talking about having, like, you used the word polygamy before, but it's not polygamy because they're not married, right? It's just a series of like open relationships that these guys have where, maybe there's an expectation for the woman to be faithful. Maybe there isn't, who knows?
Basically, I think what you see in his thinking and in the thinking of a lot of guys throughout history, this is not new with Andrew Tate, is this idea that when you grow in rank, station, and wealth, you're entitled to more women.
Right. I mean, entitlement is also a great word.
You see this. You see this, that when somebody is successful, they think of themselves as a Superman, and monogamy, or that's fair enough for the common subjugated masses, but for me, a king, that's
interesting,
right? That's not true. And the Bible anticipates this. Deuteronomy 17:17, talking about the qualifications for the king of Israel, says this: "And he shall not acquire many wives for himself, lest his heart turn away, nor shall he acquire for himself excessive silver and gold. And when he sits on the throne of his kingdom, he shall write for himself a book, a copy of this law, approved by the Levitical priests, and it shall be with him, and he shall read it all the days of his life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his God by keeping all the words of this law and these statutes and doing them, that his heart may not be lifted up above his brothers, and that he may not turn aside from the commandment, either to the right hand or the left." So this is something that happens to rulers and powerful men that the Torah anticipates and warns against.
Okay, I have a quick question, and that's a question that a lot of Muslims talk about. That, okay, you Christians oppose polygamy in Islam, but your Bible itself talks about polygamy. Solomon had multiple wives. David had multiple wives, and blah blah blah. So I don't want to address that question right here because I think there's misquoting. They're not reflecting some reality.
When the Torah is given to them, right? The idea is first God gives them the 10 Commandments, okay, and the 10 Commandments come, and then after that. So if you're going to go to like Exodus, like it starts in Exodus 21. There are a whole bunch of other laws that are started to be handed down. Okay, so first there's 10 main commandments, and then there are 52 others that are handed out in Exodus, and then you get the book of Leviticus and the book of Deuteronomy and all of these other things. And Deuteronomy is more like a recap of all of those laws.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that you're dealing with a group of slave people who are coming out of a culture that they've never really had, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they left Canaan, and then they were enslaved for 400 years, and then now they're free. And they have no idea how to deal with each other. So that's why God is giving them these laws, and he's meeting them where they're at. So whether it's slavery or, polygamy or murder or whatever, the introduction of the law, the Torah, to them is so that he can start to use the laws that he's giving them to help them become his own special people, right? Mm-hmm. Like they're supposed to be different. Mm-hmm. And if you follow that thread and that logic with it, by the time you get to the New Testament, God is saying, okay, you know what? Like I have been with these people for, thousands of years now. And what I am trying to guide you to is how it was in the beginning with Adam and Eve.
Okay.
Right? A man and a woman.
Mm-hmm.
One husband of one wife, Paul talks about. I think in 1 Timothy 1:8, it talks about how we're supposed to, the Torah is for sinners, right? The Torah and the law are for sinners. It's not for righteous people. It's to instruct in righteousness, but it's given to us because we're fallible. So if you look at it from that way, and it's a point that God is trying to lead you to, as opposed to, here it is, I gave it to you, and it's a blank check from here, right? Just follow the rules and everything is fine. Mm. Like, you don't do that with your children. You know what I mean? If I give you if my son, colors in the lines when he's little, right? I go, great job. But if he colors in the lines when he's, a high schooler, okay, I take that for granted, right? Like you should be able to do that by now. And now you're ready for something else, right? Like now you're ready to write a book. Now you're ready to, not just, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like do something bigger. And I'm trying to lead my child to a point where he is mature.
Right.
And to me, full-blown maturity in the scripture is laid out in, 1 Timothy, 1 Peter, right? So this idea of relating to your wives in a way that is antithetical to the world around them is where God was leading, particularly in issues of monogamy.
Okay.
So to go through the basic overview here, in the book of Genesis, God creates Adam and Eve. He creates one man and one woman and makes that pattern for marriage. There's lots of narrative that includes polygamy, but there is never an endorsement of polygamy in the Bible, and you should never read something as happening in the narrative as an endorsement.
Yeah.
Muslims get confused by this sometimes because that's what hadith are. It's a narrative, the prophet's behaviors, which are therefore taken as normative for human life. The Bible was never intended to be that way. Prophets sin sometimes, and those are there to be taken as cautionary tales, including Solomon's polygamy. When we get to Jesus, Jesus says, therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one. What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate. So Jesus is using the text of Genesis to make an argument that a man and woman should never get divorced. Jesus' standard of marriage is one man, one woman for life. And when his disciples hear this, they said, who can endure this teaching? It's so hard. And he says, this isn't for everybody. And only to those who it is given. Meaning marriage, in the eyes of God, is an exclusive one-man, one-woman relationship, which is also a massive challenge that's there to shape your character. If you really want to be a conqueror, marry one woman, commit to her for life, lean on God for help, overcome all the challenges in front of you, stay loyal, raise your children, be present in their lives, pour out from your own soul for the good of those around you. Don't be a wet blanket who's walked on by his wife, but be somebody who is a loving leader with courage, with commitment, with thoughtfulness. And that, in the eyes of God, is how you become a conqueror in your love life.
I like it.
Not by taking multiple conquests. Loyalty, commitment, covenant is the mark of a conqueror. Why? Because that's who God is, and that's how we reflect the God who makes us. And this lack of commitment is antithetical to who God is.
It's actually cowardice, and because it's shading yourself from religion. And my last comment is, good kings are humble kings.
Absolutely.